In this lesson, we will build the primary bones of our head rig. Still working with the same scene file, clear face. Now, what we're going to do is focus on giving the animator as much control as possible. So we'll be creating multiple head and jaw pivots. And we'll notice how much flexibility we receive after the setup is all said and done. So as we progress through the rig, as we start to bind, we'll test this out. And from this, you'll see how much control we'll be able to get, which is going to be really fun. So let's say we go ahead and get started. I'll head over to the side view. It's in the hot box. And then from there, let's go ahead and template the head layer. We'll also do the same for the teeth and the tongue, so we can see our placement clearly. From there, we can go ahead and under the animation menu, choose skeleton, joint tool, just go into the options, reset the settings. All right, let's say we go ahead and start. So we'll start by drawing out our first joint right at the base of the neck. From there, we're going to draw out the next joint where our first head pivot will be, right at the end of the spine. Everything starts to connect back into the head. The next bone we're going to draw out is going to be our traditional head pivot. It's right behind the ear. And from there, we'll go ahead and hit enter. Okay, so it looks pretty simple for now, but again, as we start to progress, we'll see how much control this is really going to give us. And we have a few more chains to draw out as well. So let's go ahead and get started by first cleaning up our orientation. With our neck root selected, I'm going to go ahead and select the entire hierarchy. We can do so by heading over to, I'll just go to the script editor, and we'll type in the command select-high for select hierarchy. You can see that. All right, so from there we can go ahead and highlight it, press Control Enter to run the command. I'm going to close out the script editor. Now that all of these are selected, let's go ahead and view the local rotation axes of these bones using our tool. All right, from there we'll head over to the perspective. Okay, so what we want to do is stay consistent with our orientation. I like the orientation of the first head pivot bone, so we'll go ahead and work with that. X pointed down the chain, Y pointed up and away, and Z pointed over to the side. So we're going to need to change that for the first or the second head pivot bone, but also for the neck as well. So what we can do for the neck bone is actually use an aim constraint trick. So I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. Let's go ahead and create a locator. With the locator still selected, I'm going to go ahead and now shift select the object that we like to snap to. And now we can use our match position tool. Great. So from there we can go ahead and just move this over. And this is going to be our temporary up vector that the Z will point at. And of course X is going to point at this bone here, our first head pivot bone. So with that selected, I'm going to press Shift P to unparent. What we want to do from here with the neck bone selected is head over to the attribute editor, Control A, and we want to zero out its orientation. So starting afresh. So just go to the joint orient and place in values of 0. All right, so from there, heading back over to the channel box, we want to select this locator. I'm going to go ahead and copy its name because we're going to paste it into the aim constraint options. We'll just take care of that. So now we want to aim at head A. So I'll go ahead and select head A first. Shift select the neck bone. Head over to constraint, aim constraint options, and resetting the settings. X, positive X is going to be our aim, so that's fine. But the Z is going to be our up vector. Let's go ahead and zero out Y. And we'll put in a value of positive Z, since we want Z to point at this locator. From there, we can go ahead and choose for the world up type, object up. And now we can paste in the locator's name, locator 1. All right, so from there, it's just a matter of running the command, choose apply, and now Z is pointed in the right direction, and so is X and Y. Beautiful. All right, so from there, we just have a little bit of cleanup work to do. Of course, we don't want any rotation on this joint. Clean it up for animation, but we still want the orientation. So here's how we're going to do this. All we need to do from here select our neck bone. We can head over to the outliner. Go ahead and expand this. We want to take the aim constraint and delete it. No longer need that. Now going to this joint, I'm going to press Control A. We're going to want to copy all of the values from our rotation channels to our joint orient channels. So that's how we're going to keep the orientation. And then as we do, we want to zero out our rotate parameters. So I'm going to start with X. I'll copy that, which is -90. Set that to 0. Go to the joint orient and paste. Head back up. Copy the next value for the Y, which is 15.6. Head over to the joint orient, paste. Okay, and we have one more value to copy, which is +90. Copy that. Go to the Z, paste, and notice our joint has been oriented properly. All right, so from here, we can go ahead and take the first head pivot and parent that back to the neck. Beautiful, and we no longer need locator 1. We will be using this more throughout the course to correct our orientation. Now, as far as this goes, this next bone, let's go ahead and zero out the X-axis. I'll just go ahead and set that to 0, and notice it's going to start to orient down the chain. But what I like to do here, being that there's going to be no end joint to this second head pivot, okay, we're going to connect our jaw joints to this after they are created. But what I'd like to do in this case is kind of straighten up the orientation. All right, so I'll go ahead and undo that. And again, we can use our aim constraint trick if we like. We could always go into the joint orient and start to modify the axis this way as well. Just going to the Y. In this case, we can set this to 0, the Y axis. Now Z is kind of pointed in the right direction, but now notice we have to adjust the X, zeroing that out, and then kind of straightening up the Z axis by adding a value in the parameter to kind of straighten it up. So you could always do it that way. I find the aim constraint trick is a little bit cleaner. But I'm going to set in a value of -20. That looks pretty good. Okay, great. Excellent. So from here, let's say we go ahead and stop the lesson. We'll want to leave our local rotation handles visible so we can always be mindful of how these bones are oriented. And in the next lesson, we'll go ahead and finish up building our primary bones by adding in our normal jaw and reverse jaw.